Welcome to Climb with Spaces. I'm so excited for session 2 in our series. And if you're watching this like session 2, don't worry. If you are on the YouTube channel, you can actually scroll right underneath this video in the details and you'll see the website. The website has the recordings. It also has the resources. And it has a link to register for the final 2 sessions in this series. So go and get it. Who am I? I'm Dr. Desiree Alexander, founder, CEO of Educator Alexander Consulting, and I love putting on these webinars. Woohoo! So we, of course, have the webinar series that is continuing. So definitely make sure every Friday in the month of July. Y'all, EdChange Global starts today. Now you see why I'm so crazy right now, but EdChange Global starts today. So we have an ECG after dark from 7 to 10. This is where you come is really, you're coming to see how to be successful on PD day, but you're coming to play games. It's games and commercials and just a big fun day where you can win a whole bunch of prizes. So you do not want to miss ECG After Dark. We decided to kind of separate the PD day from the just insanity of all of the contests that we do. So you definitely want to come to ECG After Dark. And then tomorrow from 9 to 3:30 is ECG PD Day. Some of the best presenters internationally. You want to come. We have sessions in different languages. We have sessions. You just come register. It's free. We'll see you there. And it starts today. So go ahead and make sure that you register. Then we have virtual DLC. So that is also in July. It is from SciFair in Texas. I know we have a lot of Texas folks here. Woo woo. So it's from SciFair, but they open it up because it's virtual. They open it up to everybody. So definitely go and check out. You can see these like they have nationwide, international presenters. Come check us out. Then we have immersed students in learning, exploring AR, VR, XR. If you're like, baby, I don't know what all that means. That's why you're going to come learn it on August 20th. Then we have creating follow-ups using FormU. So if you're always like, all these people do like these automatic emails, you fill out the form and it automatically sends you stuff. I need to see how to do that. I want to do that with my parents so I can stop, sending out all these emails individually. This is where you come find out how to do it, y'all. So come find out how to use FormU. Then we have starting the year off right with parents using Spaces. So this is kind of an add-on Spaces webinar outside of the series that we're doing. Then we have AI in education. Again, AI, are the robots taking up? I don't know. We're going to see. Rochelle's going to tell us. Then we have increasing your EdTech footprint and influence. This is more of a discussion. We want to talk about how we can become influential. How can we influence other educators? We want to make sure that we're spreading the good things that we do. September 17th, come check it out. When you do click on the link, you'll see something about $2. That's only if you want a certificate. It is completely free from the Everyone Academy in Morocco. Then we have Teach Trek this time, but it is the TCCA conference, one of my absolute favorite conferences in Houston, Texas. 1 day free, over 3,000 educators, a whole bunch of vendors. It is one, and I always say this, but I really mean it. It is one of the most organized conferences that I've ever seen, and just really good presenters. And it's not one of those like, do you know who I am kind of conferences, right? It's just a down home, come get some training conference. So, and network, love it, love it, love it. And then we have special education and beyond, which every educator needs on October 29th. 3 tools with endless possibilities. What tools? I don't know. Rochelle's going to tell us. And then we always have our self-paced courses where you can get you can get trained to become Google Level 1, Level 2 certified. SLLA, that's that Educational Leadership 6990 test. All that good stuff is on the website. So there we go. Woo! And remember, if you're like, Desiree, that went so fast. It's all at the same link. So you are fine. Go to one link and you get everything. But guess what? What we're about to do is learn how to climb with Spaces.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to many of you. I recognize some of the faces. names, if you will, I'm sorry, that were here in our first session. And so I'm certainly grateful to be with you again. I did want to sort of echo Dr. Desiree Alexander's comments about questions. I do want you to feel free to ask any questions at any time that you have them during the webinar today. And then I will periodically stop and ask if there are any burning questions out there. And I encourage you to ask those questions because they really have the benefit, or the benefit of them is it helps everybody, right? To be able to fully understand the purpose, right, of what we're doing here today, as well as further clarifying any misconceptions or even things that may be ways that we can utilize it that maybe I didn't even think about. So certainly encouraged to do that. And so we're focused today on CLIMBE with spaces, and we're going to use part of the time today to really go into the platform. And if you have not yet had an opportunity, I know some of you did so last week. If you have not had the opportunity to join our space or our class on Spaces, I'm going to encourage all of you to do that now. You can either go to spacesedu.com and utilize the class code that you see on the screen right now, or you can simply scan the QR code with your phone and it will take you directly to our CLIMBE class virtual interactions on Spaces, which we will be using at sort of the second half of our experience today. I'm really excited that you all are here. All right, so as far as resources are concerned, Dr. Desiree mentioned that they will be on the website. There is a specific resource that was a lesson plan that was created for a play that I wrote called Diversity. It's Not Just About You, It's About Us. And so the reason why that lesson plan exists is because it takes that play and sort of builds off of that. And it actually integrates spaces, which is a beautiful thing, right? And so that's the beauty of having a space to learn, is that you actually can cultivate or create whatever that space looks like. I also want to challenge you to consider CLIMBE. CLIMBE is an acronym, and we're going to be diving into what that means, because if we really want our students to climb in general, right, not just with spaces, but today we're focused on spaces, we want them to climb as in C-L-I-M-B. Sorry, yeah, C-L-I-M-B. But as far as our acronym is concerned, it's C-L-I-M-B-E with that extra letter, because every letter represents a certain active verb that we really have to understand and kind of think about or process in order to really figure out ways in which we can help our students to climb. All right, I hope everyone has had a chance to kind of get into the space and create an account. If you're still doing that with Spaces, certainly feel free to go ahead and go on and get that set up, because we will need it during the latter part of our session today. But I'm going to go ahead and move forward with our next slide. And you're going to get a chance to watch something which we're going to sort of unpack and discuss a little bit further afterwards.
If you want an activator, raise your hands.
Isabella Magaha may only be 9 years old, but today she's the teacher in her third grade classroom.
I would add a little bit more glue, but it was really fun.
Teachers at Seminole Science Charter School are flipping the books for a day, letting students become the teachers.
Maybe just a little bit more glue, and then just start mixing that little with it.
Isabella taught students how to make slime using household products.
C is this.
While 9-year-old Adam taught his classmates how to play the recorder.
It could be something like how to build a YouTube channel, or how to learn a specific language like Filipino. It could be something as simple as how to make friends.
Third grade teacher Dean Gainey came up with the idea of student-to-student teaching after talking with another educator about teaching kids non-traditional lessons.
It was a pretty random thought, but I'm a risk taker in education, so I decided to try it out.
He says immediately it was a hit. In his first year at Seminole Science, he now has all 63rd graders participating.
You have lots of culture, like culture songs, and so do I.
The kids do everything while the teacher hangs back. But Gainey says sometimes the kids channel his teaching style.
It's interesting because a lot of the things that I say I hear.
He says the whole goal is to empower students to be leaders.
I hope that they understand that everybody has something to offer. Everybody has something to share.
I hope your son works out.
And we all have the power to teach, even at 9 years old. In Seminole County, Sydney Cameron, Fox 35 News.
And so thinking about that, I want to actually sort of unpack that, right? And so it's not every day that the news comes to the school to talk to you about things that you're doing in the classroom with your students. But it was an opportunity to engage them. It was an opportunity to empower them. It was an opportunity to hang back and give them opportunities to share. And I believe that anytime we can make those things happen, we are in a powerful position because we get to empower our students to lead. And so when we think about spaces, right, how do we even think about incorporating this student ed camp, if you will, into our understanding of spaces? How can we link the two together? I don't know how many of you have attended teacher ed camps, but I know that in the state of Florida, where I am from, and by the way, and I'm certainly getting ahead of myself, but for those of you that may be joining us for the first time, I am Dean Gainey. I'm a teacher in Florida, ELA and drama, grade 7. I do not teach 3rd grade anymore, although that was a lot of fun when I was there. And so thinking about how we might bridge this student ed camp idea, it looks like a teacher ed camp in a lot of ways, right? Because students are coming similar to us as we come with things we want to share, as well as things we want to learn. And so we propose those ideas. We identify what those topics are. Students will do the same. Maybe it's Post-it notes that they're posting somewhere or a digital document. And then they vote on high object or high interest topics. And we carry out that student ed camp. I also had the opportunity to, thinking about the student ed camp, sort of do it in concurrence with another school in the state of New York. So we were both doing student ed camps, if you will, and we had an opportunity to reflectively process the student ed camp, meaning the 2 groups or 2 classes were able to do that via, at the time, using Flipgrid. And so they got a chance to meet students from New York that they had never seen before, and they were talking about their student ed camp experience, and my students were sharing as well, and they were able to make those kinds of connections. And so, of course, our focus is spaces today, but we're also going to talk about Flipgrid, which is, by the way, now Flip, as of recently. And so how do we even think about Flipgrid and integrating Flipgrid with spaces today? We're going to sort of talk about that a little bit more. And so as far as spaces facilitating this, spaces is a platform for sharing. It is a platform for empowerment. And we talked about that last week. And so the possibilities are truly endless when it comes to spaces. And I encourage you, and we're going to circle back to that slide later, but I encourage you to dive into spaces and play around with spaces and get familiar. We're going to do that a little bit today because the creative process is going to start to flow. We kind of hit this slide a little bit last webinar, but I wanted to circle back to this because I know that in probably every classroom, whether it be an elementary classroom that teaches all subject areas, or whether it be a middle or high school classroom that focuses on a specific subject area, vocabulary is very important. When I think about music, I know that I'm going to probably learn what harmony is. I'm going to probably understand what falsetto is. And when I go into an acting or a drama class, I know I'm probably going to want to know what a soliloquy is, or a monologue or dialogue, right? So there are vocabulary words associated with whatever content area we're teaching. And usability and visibility are just 2 powerful things, right? And so how powerful is it to have words such as the ones you see on our screen right here displayed in the classroom, but then also visually accessible on a platform where students can go and see them in a second location, wherever they are. Maybe they're not in school that day, right? And so thinking about how seeing them prompts them to use them or rely on them or focus on them even more than they would have previously. We talked a little bit about word wizards, which I'm going to hit again because Spaces has played a very pivotal part in helping students to be intentional. that I'm going to probably say that word a lot today, intentional, right? Certainly we know things happen by accident, but it's interesting what happens when we are intentional about, okay, we're going to utilize this platform, and it opens the door to all of these things that we may not have expected. And so what's the relevance of vocabulary even in our content areas, right? We don't think about vocabulary just for the sake of vocabulary. We think about vocabulary because we want them to translate those vocabulary words into their writing. We want them to translate those vocabulary words into their products, into what they share. And so because Spaces exists, we get a chance to think about how these vocabulary words might translate into those other areas that students can utilize them, whether they are doing it intentionally or they get so used to it that it becomes a practice for them all the time. Either way, you know, we're winning, okay? And so this is just a general, I would say, slide here, but I think it's important that I'm really big on vocabulary. I just really believe in the power of solidifying understanding of that. And so we're going to look at maybe a couple of examples of how that might look in terms of product. And something might look familiar to you from the last one, because I wanted to try to connect these as best as I could, because really that first part of our webinar was necessary in order to really figure out, well, how do I see this being used myself as a teacher in the classroom, or myself as an administrator with teachers, or myself as whatever the role is that you have. How can I utilize Spaces in order to get the best bang for your buck? How do I get out of people, or how do I create this space that people can feel like is a learning environment for them? And so when it came to the whole idea of Wizard of Words, and this is me sharing from my own personal experience in the classroom, the consistency was very, very important. Every day we identify.
I'm not sure I understand.
Sorry about that. Siri wants to talk to me. Every day we identified a word, and it could have been a word that they were already familiar with, but maybe it never been officially taught, or it could have been something brand new. We focused on that word daily, all right? We talked about quote of the day in the first webinar as well. Not only do we have a word of the day, but we have a quote of the day, and we diagnosed that quote. We unpacked that quote. We did it daily, and Spaces played a huge role in them being able to see that quote, maybe even being able to hear that quote, because maybe I modeled how it might be said, the phrasing, the intonation in my voice, the whole multimodal approach that Spaces offers creates a more comprehensive experience for students, because now it's not just words on a page. Those words are coming to life because I see something, or I hear something, or both, right? Or maybe I have to work on the product that I'm going to create based on the stimulus that you provide for them. I want my students to use those words orally, right? And so why not help them climb by actually processing that in their writing on Spaces, in their posts that they're making on Spaces, in the audio recordings or video recordings that they're doing, even when the project or product is not focused on vocabulary, right? I'm immersing them into an experience that allows that vocabulary to transcend the content, right? Because it could be something totally off from ELA, which is what I teach, but you integrate that word in there and it's a win-win. It's cross-curricular, it's repetitive, it's habit forming, and those words are going to stick a whole lot more if we can do that. And so on this slide, I'm not going to go through every little bullet point here, but I do have two links, which just to highlight those, were word of the day cities that were created by students that they were able to narrate through. They were the tour guide, if you will, for those word of the day cities using Minecraft. And so they uploaded their videos to YouTube, where they screen recorded, and they basically took us around their cities in a virtual space. And we got a chance to understand how they interpreted those words of the day, what they created to sort of make that visual. What does that look like for them? I'm going to say that again because I believe that's so important. What did that look like for them? You know, we talk about the differentiation thing. We talk about autonomy and agency. And it's just so important that one person's visualization may not necessarily look like the next person's. I think that's an important realization, but their justification or their validation of why they chose to go the way they went is really what makes that so powerful. All right, so I know that we do have a couple people that may not have been with us for the first webinar. And so maybe you saw this in the video if you watched the webinar video from part 1, but I thought this was worth a repeat because we have students here, and I will tell you the one on the right-hand side, you probably would not have expected what you're about to hear. You would not have expected it out of that student, knowing that he came in so quiet, so in his shell. And then we think about opportunities like this for them to create products and for them to share those products through a medium or a platform like Spaces, to be able to collaborate on those projects through a medium like Spaces. And then this happens.
Keep on acting juvenile and I'm leaving you in.
Let's try that again. I want to make sure we can see this. So I know we had that trouble before. So let's see if we can get that.
Keep on acting juvenile and I'm leaving you in denial. Yeah, acting like a child. That's the meaning of juvenile. Yeah, I'll be in rap writing. Document it, put it in a file. Yeah, now my boy's coming. He'll be rapping, get a whole car like a boomer bow.
Don't concoct a lie because these are some things I can't comprehend. You really think you're sorry, but you suffer from your ignorance. I'm spitting these fire bars like a bit of steel with a bit of flint. And to you, this really should not be ambiguous.
Yeah, ambiguous. That rhymes with mischievous. If you're acting mischievous, you're gonna get to taste my fist. Do you get the gist?
I don't need a list to tell whether you're nice. Because these WOD bars have a special spice, and they are so fire. It's like it infests your mind. And of the special spice, we got a whole pint. We're out.
Okay, so as you probably can gather, these are not third graders, these are middle school students. And so, you know, their autonomy, their choices, right? They had to choose their words. They had to choose how they represented. In fact, they had choices on what to do for their Word of the Day project in general. Instead of doing Minecraft, these two students chose to collaborate on a Word of the Day rap. And it was interesting. You can probably pick out some of those words of the day. Dr. Desiree, can we pause right here for questions? And I also want to make sure that that video was able to be seen and heard. Are there any questions out there as well?
We can definitely see it and hear it, and there are no questions right now.
Excellent. We will press on. Choices, right? Again, we talked about the word intentional. In order to really get the best bang for our bucks, in my view, I have to be intentional. I have to present them with the components, with the tools, with the ideas that they might need in order to be able to move forward. And maybe I'm not coming up with everything either. Maybe I'm giving them the opportunity to sort of think about, well, how do we visualize these words? How would this word be best represented? And then they make those decisions on their own. Again, agency and autonomy playing a very important role. We dive into a little bit of the higher level thinking skills as well, because if you look at the last bullet point, well, how do you apply your understanding of that word? How do I know, or how can you demonstrate that you understand that? Is that through a visual product? Is that through an oral product? Is that through an audio visual product? Is that through a document or a PDF product? Is that through a link that you attach to your activity or assignment because you think this link fully represents the idea that you had in your mind, right? All of those opportunities exist on Spaces, and there is no limit to the ability that it has in order to empower our students to think about all of those things and what might that be a best representation of their learning. All right, let's hear from this wonderful person. And this is a little bit of a clip, but it's short.
If you only do what you can, you will never be more than what you are now. I quote Master Shifu.
Now, I must just mention here, this student is very articulate. His vocabulary is extensive. He has from as far as I'm made aware by his mom, he's had extensive vocabulary since he was in 2nd grade. However, he doesn't always, maybe he hadn't always channeled his energy in the way that it needed to be channeled in. Maybe he never had the stage or the platform in order to really hone in on who he is and his abilities. But this particular student, his 7th grade year was absolutely mind-blowing. I think in a lot of cases or ways he surprised himself. Why? Because we created the space for it. We created the space where we cultivated the space for him to be successful in whatever way that looks for him. And I think that that's really an important thing. All right. And so if they're learning because they want to learn, if they're learning because they're excited about learning, if they're learning because, man, this is so engaging, if they're learning because it's an opportunity for them to be able to share their thinking or share their experiences or share their knowledge or insights or even their backgrounds and cultural experiences with somebody else, they're not going to forget those moments, right? When we're able to do that. All right. All right. So here we go. Hopefully everybody's good, right? Because why did we go through all that originally? Well, we have to get our minds right. We got to get our minds right, because if we get our minds right, then everything else comes after that almost naturally, right? And so we think about these 6 words: cultivate, lead, inspire, motivate, build. And even though empower comes at the end, it's not the end all be all. It's not, okay, we cultivate it so that we can lead, and we lead so we can inspire, and so on. That's not the idea. The idea is all of these are areas that we want to help our students to grow. And all of them are necessary in order to visualize or see that growth or actualize that growth. And so empowerment may be happening throughout. It's not something that happens at the end, it happens all the time. And it happens, but because we're able to identify these other areas and how that might look for our students. Climbing, it's not a battle with elements, nor against the law of gravity, it's a battle against myself, right? If I'm gonna climb, the battle is against myself. Why? I have to pull my weight up in the literal sense, right? In the physical sense, I'm climbing, I have to deal with my own body weight, right? My own self, I'm pulling myself up. I have to use my physical attributes in order to get myself from where I am to whatever that higher place is. Right? But in the non-literal sense, we think about the meaning or implications behind this quote. I'm trying to be a better person tomorrow than I am today. I'm trying to be a better person, or a even more intelligent or smarter person, or a more active person, or a more kind person, or a more compassionate person tomorrow than I am today. And so that's what Walter Benatti talks about here. That's, I think, the implication behind this. And so this is the goal of helping our students to climb, not because I want you to be a doctor. I want you to be what you want to be. I want you to do what reflects your interest, right? So when we cultivate, thinking about cultivating the footprint, what could that footprint be? In the sand? Absolutely. Could that footprint be in a digital space? Absolutely. Right? And so we have our students utilizing technology so much more now than perhaps ever before. So much exists, so many different types of devices, so many different platforms exist. And so how do we teach our students to cultivate their footprint? How do we help our students to be able to have a footprint, or to know how to interact, or how to know how to create a foundation? Oh, I see a typo. I do not like that, but that's okay. So when we cultivate, we identify the ground. We cultivate. As a farmer, as a gardener, and I love gardening, I understand that the only way for the seeds that I put in the ground to produce what I understand they're supposed to produce is to make sure that the ground is right. If I drop the seed into some rocks or into some thorns or into anything other than good soil, I may not get the desired result. A house without a foundation won't stand as well. So we have to think about how we've helped our students to ground themselves or to have that foundation for climbing. Once we get the foundation right, we can go up. But if the foundation is not right, that house is going to come crumbling down. All right. We want them to yield their greatest potential. I want to be the best version of myself. I want my students to be the best version of themselves. And that may never, maybe, right? Maybe I'm constantly becoming better. So maybe I'm never going to reach whatever that ultimate state is, but I'm going to keep making progress to get to that point or as close to it as I can, right? And so when we think about that, we have to, I think it's important to understand that the students come with information, they come with understanding, they come with valuable experiences, and those experiences, you know, the understandings, whatever that they have, can be utilized, right? And I think it's important that we do that because it makes them feel belong, like they're part. They belong. They have a value, and so bringing it into spaces as well, thinking about how to include everybody. That's one of the powerful things I've seen is the inclusive nature of spaces, being able to show that everybody's opinions matter, and we certainly can do that orally as well. And in a lot of cases we do, but then we could also reflect that in a space like this. Okay, being able to demonstrate relationships between skill sets and making it relevant, right? The ability for them to be able to interact in a digital space. Well, how could that be? How's that relevant? How's that relevant in later life? Absolutely is relevant because we're always sending emails. We're always using digital spaces to share content. And it's important that they understand the value of the content that they're sharing and also to understand that what they put out there, once it's out there, it's out there, right? All right, so we're gonna have a few app smashes, if you will, thinking about, well, what can I do on Spaces? What can I do on Spaces? Maybe even bringing in other platforms that I already use. And so here's an example. If I was a social studies teacher and I had a unit that I wanted my students to get involved in that might be reflecting government or leaders such as a president or a mayor or a governor, right? One thing you might have them do is take pictures of important government and social areas, thinking about their place in society as a citizen, utilizing Clips, which is an iOS app, and then adding in those closed captions, thinking about different kinds of learners, those that read the closed captions, maybe those students that may have issues with hearing, thinking about that and creating a video highlighting their learning or showcasing that learning, and then being able to demonstrate that or showcase that or share that through Spaces. Okay, this is creation right here, right? And what's the value of creation? We talked about this in the first webinar. Creation is, in my view, and I don't think I will ever not believe this, but creation is the highest form of learning. Why is that true? In my mind, it's true because there are so many other things that come into play when you have to create, right? I have to have a skill set. I have to know how to use these tools. I have to understand why those tools exist. I also have to understand how to triangulate those tools. How do I put it all together? How do I synthesize the information? How do I create something that somebody else can experience or see and be able to, and they be able to understand what my views were? So sharing information is so powerful because it takes learning to a higher degree. It takes that learning a step further. All right, greatness is the amount of time you are able to invest in cultivating your ground. If we want our students to be great, which I believe we do, right? We have to focus on how do we get this ground right? How do we create the conversations in our classrooms that that sort of help us stimulate our thinking, or even holding ourselves accountable? How do we hold ourselves accountable to what we post, right? That's part of cultivation as well, because then we can move forward with that knowledge and understanding of being able to post properly. All right, let's go to the L. L is leading, right? We lead so our students can lead. And that's probably one thing I love the most about leadership. A lot of times, the students see the teacher as the end all be all, but that's not true. I'm there as a facilitator of learning but I also want you all to become leaders of learning. I want you all to be empowered or to take that ownership of what it is that you're learning. So a philosophy, for example, might be technology is a necessary component of learning, and it can be used for consumption, seeking, creating, and sharing. We're going to come back to that later, but does not and should not drive the learning process. And so thinking about that in terms of leading students, we're not just, and we know our students are on their phones all the time. I teach 7th grade, and they are always on technology. That's not necessarily a bad thing because technology does help us, right? But when we can help our students to understand that we lead in understanding why we're doing what we're doing, maybe even thinking about, well, not everything is technology, right? There are times where we need to think about or process before we use it. There are times that we need to consider how maybe that's not the best tool for me to use. All right, and so being able to lead our students or guide them in the sense of knowing what's out there, knowing what can be used, and knowing what shouldn't. All right. If the students see learning that's modeled by the teacher, how does that affect or impact them beyond the classroom? Right? If I model how to appropriately use a tool, then perhaps my students will gain that understanding as well, and perhaps that understanding will transcend the 7th grade year, and they'll be able to use that in future experiences. Right? Also take the time to learn from and with them. It's very important, right? Because that's leadership to me. Leadership is not just me saying, do this, do that, do this, do that, but I get a chance to learn with them. And so there are things that I intentionally will highlight that I don't know. And that gives them the opportunity to present their understanding or share, right? Which is one of the things we want them to arrive at, is the confidence or the ability to know that they value what they have to offer. All right, if you let them lead, they will definitely surpass the expectations. All right, so set them up for success and watch it happen. All right, pausing for just a moment, Dr. Des, any questions sitting out there for us?
The only question we had was, are you going to show the tool and how to do some of these things in the tool?
Yes, in fact, that's kind of what we were hoping to get to, but at the second half, but I wanted to build the understanding of CLIMBE first, and then sort of get to that. We are headed there very, very quickly. So whoever asked that question, yes, 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 indeed.
And that was the only question.
Awesome. All right. So here's our app smash for a Minecraft world. If we were trying to, and this could be for any subject area, right? And we talked a little bit about how we could screen record and post that video in Spaces. All right, let me see. I'm going to sort of reorder my thinking here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go ahead and look at Spaces, and then I'm going to circle back. So let's get in there. So if you have not had a chance to create your account on Spaces, here's that QR code one more time. All you need to do is scan that QR code. But we're going to go ahead and take a look at Spaces live. Let me share.
Dean, can you please put the QR code back up for those who were not in the first session?
Okie dokie, here we go. I'll give you about maybe a minute or so if you need to scan that QR code. So we're going to look at a couple of things. We're going to look at is creating a post, right? How do we do that? We're going to look at the multimedia aspects of the platform. How do you respond to a prompt? And we're going to think about, well, how do I build activities within the platform, and maybe even think about how we might go about responding or completing, right, an activity using some sort of product, right? All right. How are we doing on our QR code. Hopefully everybody's gotten a chance to do that. And so just a reminder too, whenever you have those questions, make sure you throw them out there. In fact, Dr. Des is checking that chat for us, and if we need to, we can always give you the opportunity to come on the mic with your question as well, especially as we look at the platform live, right? Because there may be something that comes up that you want to know about in that moment. All right. All right, do we have a thumbs up? Anybody still trying to get into the classroom?
I don't see anything in the chat.
Okay, I could sing to pass some time, so let me know. All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. So we are in Spaces right now. I hope that you can see my Spaces screen or Spaces platform. And oh, there's Maria. Thank you, Maria. I see your thumbs up there. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So Climb Club virtual interactions. And so I want to point out some of the visual elements of what I see when I log into Spaces as the teacher.
Dean, I'm so sorry. I'm going to stop you just for a second. Someone said that they cannot get into that particular classroom.
Okay.
Any help that we may be able to give them?
So
definitely working. You have all the people in it. So
right. And so we have several names. Can we? I'm not sure who the person is, but are they having trouble with the QR code, or is it the link that we're having trouble with?
I'm actually going to ask them to hop on the mic just very quickly because I know we need to move on. Okay. If you can unmute yourself and hop on the mic, let us know what's happening right quick.
Yeah, it's me, Kathy.
Hey, Kathy.
I tried the QR code with my Android phone and it just went blank. I mean, it said open link and then I got a blank screen. And I just tried it with my iOS phone and I got this weird, I don't know what, wanting me to register for something, but I have an account in Spaces already set up. So maybe do I need to be in Spaces first and then go to the room?
Go ahead and log in. Yes, go ahead and log into your Spaces account, Kathy. I'm going to put the link as well, specifically to this class in the chat. That might work better for you if you click on the link. But since you already have your Spaces account, you should be able to use that.
Because I was trying to I'm on Zoom on my computer, and then I was going to go into Spaces on my phone. So I don't see where I can put in a, maybe I need to look at this a little more. So I'm on my phone in Spaces and on Zoom on my computer. So where would I log in the code in my Spaces?
Okay, is there a way for you to access that link and send that link to your phone? You should be using your phone, right? So can you get that link from your phone, or shall we send that link to your phone?
Yeah, I guess you could just send it to my phone. Should I just put my phone number in there?
Let me.
Well, I'm going to say, Kathy, if you can take it out the chat and maybe email it to yourself, because I know we kind of have to move on.
Sure.
But if you can, if you can get it out the chat and email it to yourself, and then you can pull up your email on your phone, since we're in the middle of the whole session.
Yeah, go ahead. It's all right. I'll just watch. It's just too.
Or you know what? If you put your phone number in the chat, I can, or just private message it to me. I'll send it to you.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
but I don't want to take up any more time. That's fine.
Yeah, so just put your phone number, private message me in the chat, and I'll send it to you.
Okay, thanks.
We'll get you straight.
Awesome. All right. And so since that actually came up, and so you do have the option on Spaces to be both the student and the teacher. I know that I utilize two different emails for Spaces, one to enroll if I'm in someone else's class as the student, but then I also have my teacher account, which I use for my own students. And so since we're here, all right, let me go back to our main screen so you can see how I got there. All right, so this is where we're looking at our specific class. Now, if I have multiple classes in spaces, I'm obviously going to have those populated here, which you can see I have 6 different classes set up. But the class that we are in right now is the CLIMBE Club Virtual Interactions. Okay, and so if everyone is successful in getting in, you will see that that class is here, and there are several students, or in this case, teachers, enrolled, and that list is on the left-hand side. Okay. You also see that there are numbers as well on the next to them, and that's basically identifying that's the number of things that are attached to that particular individual. Maybe it's posts that they have been given access to, whether they have responded or not, or activities that they have been assigned, whether they have completed them or not. Just kind of gives you an idea of how many of those items are connected to those individuals. In the middle of the screen, we have, and I'm in the feed section, which is why this is highlighted blue. We have several different posts. All right, I'm going to scroll down, just try to move as slowly as I can so that you can see that some of these posts were from June, because we've had people, entering the class for a little while. So we have some June posts. Yes, as I scroll down, I'm going back in time. Okay, all right. You will see that some have responded as well to posts that were made. You will also notice that for some of the posts, there are visuals. Okay, but for every post, there are text, there's text involved. There could be a video link, there could be a document. For example, this post includes an image and a document. Okay. And so this post right here is the one that I'm gonna circle back to, because I'm gonna want everybody to try to respond to this particular post at some point during our interaction today. All right, on the right-hand side, this is what we call curriculum tags or curriculum goals. And so we, as the teacher, have the opportunity to identify what curriculum goals we want to establish for our class that we are teaching. As I said earlier in the presentation, I teach ELA. I also teach drama. I also have a gardening club, right? And so when I go into identify standards, and I'll show you how to do that. When I go into identify standards, I'm going to look for the standards that are applicable to my state or content area, or maybe even our national standards. And when I do that, I select those, and then I can choose from them as I'm creating a post in the feed or an activity in the activities section. Okay, so that's kind of your main screen here. On the right-hand side, you'll see this is my notifications menu. So if I were to click on there, it will show me the activity that has been occurring in this particular class, or I can view all notifications for all of the classes that I have. Okay. All right. If I were to click on my name here, right, and let's say I wanted to go to the account settings. Okay, this allows me to change my user information, of course, but what I wanted to show you was the curriculum tag sets. All right, so as you can see, I have 4 identified. First and foremost, the ISTE, Digital Citizenship Standards specifically is what I added those for, but they have all the ISTE standards there. I do teach drama or fine arts, so there is a theater standards for middle school. And then this was kind of like where I was looking for my gardening club standards with agriculture. And then finally, I teach grade 7 ELA. And so we have shifted to what you call the best standards, and I have those in there as well. If I were to click on add curriculum tag set, I get a chance now to look for the standards that I want to use. Now, obviously, I teach in the state of Florida, but let's say I wanted to look for standards in the state of Minnesota. I can type in Minnesota or part of the state, it will populate, and then I have all of these standards that are viewed here are based on Minnesota. And the beauty of it is all of the spaces includes many different standards, right? So if your standards are most likely in here, there's so many different ones sort of embedded that you get a chance to look at. All right, so here we have, let's say, grade 4 English language arts standards for the state of Minnesota, right? And so if I'm just to kind of scroll down briefly, you can see that they're all here. And so if I wanted to add those standards or add this particular one, if I taught 4th grade ELA, then I would click on, hopefully you can see it in the top right-hand screen, add set. Now, I'm not going to actually do that because I do not teach 4th grade language arts. In fact, let me go ahead and do it so you can see that when I do select it, it's going to go to my list. All right, it's going to say Minnesota English Language Arts, grade 4. And it's going to also tell you there's 175 of those tags in there that you could choose from. Now, since I don't teach in Minnesota, I can delete those from my list, which means that when I go to attach them to whatever the item is that I'm creating, they will not be in my bank of curriculum tags to choose from. Okie doke. How are we doing? Any questions lingering out there so far?
You have one. Are there Canadian standards?
Oh, good question. Let's go back in and show you that. What do we teach in Canada? The person who may have asked that question, are they teaching there in Canada?
Grade 2.
Grade 2. So we have a couple of things that show in Canada. Oh, by the way, but you can toggle if you needed to between all state, province, and school. So we have something for CPA, which let's see what that is. I'm not sure. Okay, so that's not gonna help us there. All right, so the only thing that I am seeing for Canada so far are the engineering standards. However, I'm sure that that is something that we can even talk to spaces about adding, right? Because there's a huge variety of standards already present here. And so if it's not there, then I'm sure it'd be very, very easy to add those standards. All right, any other questions lingering out there or?
Not at this time.
Excellent. All right, so let's shift here. Again, this was our feed tab. We're gonna go to the activities tab to kind of look around here. You will notice that if you go to activities, if you joined prior to today, then you probably have already seen that these were populated in here. If you're just joining, guess what? You should also see them, because when I created the activity, I said, when I created it, and maybe I should show you how to do that. New activity. All right, so if I were creating a new assignment, then I get the chance to identify what class I'm creating it for. It's gonna auto-populate with that space. So whatever class it is, it will match in terms of space, as you will, and we'll talk about different kinds of spaces in a minute. Do I want all students to have that assignment? In most cases, I think the answer might be yes. So I would have the all students box checked off, and I would go ahead and check that box as well. I'm going to put in a title of the activity because I want to, preface that so the students can know, oh, that's the one I need to click on, all right, by name. I can also put in specific instructions that I want them to follow with regards to the assignment or task. And here's our multimedia component. I love the multimedia component, number one, because as a teacher, I get a chance to add different kinds of media to whatever the task is. But even as a student, from the student view, they can also add multimedia to their assignments, posts, etc. If you notice right here, you get a chance to add up to 10 files, and it could be 5 pictures, a PDF document, and 4 URLs. If I did my math correctly, that gives me 10. I could have any combination of those items here. up to 10. And I think that's beautiful, right? Especially if you're front loading information, or if you are wanting to create a database or a bank of tools for them to be able to use within the activity. They can all be in here for them to select on. All right, important dates. If you wanted to assign a start date, what's the relevance of the start date? Well, I can have that start date as today, or I can say, I don't want anybody to see that until July 30th. And it will not show or be visible to anyone until July 30th at midnight. Okay. As well, I can attach a due date. Now, obviously, at any time, this is editable. So if I wanted the due date to be July 19th, but then I realized, oh, we need more time, then I can always go back in there and change that due date. Okay. Again, your curriculum tags. Remember, you selected your curriculum tags from the bank that's built into the platform, and then you get a chance to add specifically from those curriculum tags. Well, what tag represents this piece of information? What is the purpose of this particular activity? All right, and it could be multiple that you're selecting, but you get a chance to decide. You can also narrow your selections down to whatever the content area is that you have from the bank. Okay, very good. Got a little feedback thing right there. Spaces is always wanting to hear feedback. They're really good about listening to the feedback that's offered by teachers. So just something to keep in mind. All right, I'm not going to actually save this, so I'm leaving without saving. But I did want to point out that we have a couple of activities in here. And so let me just open this. Hold on a second. All right, let me just open this and give you a view as to what you see when you go inside of an already assigned activity. As you can see, obviously, I have not reviewed anything because nothing has yet been turned in. Why is this showing late? Oh my gosh, these students did not do their work. No, I'm just kidding. The date that I had for a due date specifically was today at 11 o'clock. And so if it didn't come in today at 11 o'clock, then it's obviously going to show late here. Now, I can obviously change that going in and choosing a different due date. But that's going to be up to you, but depending on what the assignment is. All right, so when I click view activity, this is a view of what I've assigned for my students to complete. And there are a few questions here, and we'll talk more about this as well. But there is an excerpt from a poem that we talked about last week. And the excerpt is for 4 stanzas, 4 lines, so a total of 16 lines. Then I wanted my students to think about how they would visualize, characterize, and analyze that poem. All right, so you have one question for visualize where they would actually have to create some sort of product. Maybe it is an image, maybe it's an animation, depending on what their choices are, what they want to do. And then they have a couple questions about characterization, again, teaching ELA, but this can easily be science related because the poem itself, which I'll open in a minute, is life science. It's some cases it's biology, but obviously the content itself is reading, all right, or writing. And then we have 3 analyze questions where we're hoping for them to kind of think and process that. Maybe even they're collaborating in a space and talking about it with their students or with their peers about what that poem might mean. And I'll show you that group space so that you understand how we can get students collaborating on this if we wanted them to work together. All right, if I were to click on the image that I have already uploaded, here is the image, which contains the 4 stanzas. And the importance here, I think, is of this image right here, I think is important. I didn't have to do that, right? I could have challenged my students to consider an image that matches or they feel reflects the information in the poem. I think that's kind of nice because everything in ELA is all about visualizing anyway. When we see words, we think images. We're reading a lot about research about that, right? We think or we process things visually when we read them. All right, and let's see. I have attached 5 of my curriculum tags to this task. All right. All right, any questions so far about, we've covered the feed tab, and we've also looked at the activities tab.
We don't have any questions in the chat. I am going to give about 30 seconds. If you want to unmute yourself to ask your question, please help yourself right now. Going once. Going twice. We have no questions at this time.
Awesome. I hope that this is helpful to everyone thus far. Just really, really quickly, the other activity that I've placed in here was on diversity in history and society, and the image has been attached as well. And if you notice, this is specific to, I've chosen a lot of ISTE standards that are reflected in that activity. All right, moving right along. This is probably I won't say the most important, but it's probably the most fulfilling, I think, in terms of spaces, because we think about spaces, or spaces gives you the opportunity to create spaces. All right, as of right now, you'll notice that there's only one space for our class, and that's where everybody is, right? And it's called the class space, and that's, I'm hovering my mouse over that right now, and we have a total of 27 students. You'll notice that students is highlighted, sort of looking, it's blue on my screen. Hopefully you can see that. It says students can post to this space. They can also see each other's content, but interaction is limited. So you can see, maybe there's some things you might not be able to edit or interact with, right? But you can see, and in some cases you can respond, you can comment, you can like something using the emojis, etc. Okay, I want to point out too, there is a family icon here, and there is an eyeball that has a line drawn through it, which means that if I had, let's say you were a student, you were an actual student, and I wanted my parents to be connected to spaces, but maybe I did not want my parents to see this particular section on spaces. Right now, they would not be able to, because I have it hidden from family, any connected family members, but I could obviously change that by clicking on it. And by the way, if you see it says the space is currently hidden, families can't see it. But if I clicked on it, I can change that. I can make it so that they are able to see it. It's visible to families. And then they could also comment if I toggled on that button. Okay, so you have different levels of access that you're able to give in your specific spaces, which I believe that's powerful, because as teachers, obviously we have lots that we want to share with parents, because we want them to reinforce learning at home. We want them to be able to know what's going on and help their kids. All right, but then there might be some things that maybe you want to kind of keep isolated. Maybe it's just for the student to be able to reflect on their learning or whatever. And so you get a chance to design that. All right, let's click on create here. You see a scrolling thing here as well of different ways you can use spaces. But if we click on create, we have two different types of spaces aside from the class space that we can create for our students. I'm going to start with the group space. All right, and so if I were to select the group space, I want to create a group space. Why do I want to do that? Well, thinking about that poem, that activity, for example, I could have easily thrown that into this group space so that I could have my students talking about it, whether they're literally in the classroom talking out loud, whether they are collaborating and talking in this digital space, or whether both are happening at the same time. All right. Do I want my groups to be automatic? Do I want to manually do it? Maybe I have some students that I know I don't need to work together. Maybe, maybe you have something you want to kind of separate. Okay, so if you wanted to do it automatically, you can say I need 13 in each group. Now that's a pretty big group. All right, but in most cases, you might want to say I need 3. When you select that option, you're going to click next. and it's going to automatically put those students into groups of 3. Now, we're not necessarily done here. Let's say we're not happy with the way it worked out. You can still edit this as well. All right, if you click on that pencil icon, you can change the name. But let's say I wanted to move a student from one group to another. You can also do that on this space. And you could also then, of course, add them, whatever student you move, to whoever the new group is. Okay, that's that. Okay, and I'm going to close and go back. Okay, and then show you, well, if I wanted to manually select groups instead of automatically doing that, then I'm going to click next, and then I get a chance to add them, and it forms the groups as I go. So let's just say I selected the first 3 for the first group, just to say, and then I'll add the next group, and I'll keep going all the way down until the end. And so I believe that there are obviously benefits to randomized groups, but there's also benefits to being able to identify, well, I want to mix my groups. I don't want, let's say, kids that may be strong in this particular area. I don't want all the stronger students in one group. Let me manually disperse them. So depending on whatever the scenario is, you can create the space to work for you. The individual space, as you can see here, is one-on-one. Now, I love this one-on-one space. Why? Why do I love it? Because I'm really big on self-reflection with my kids. It's so important because it's part of the learning process. So I have selected individual. Again, I'm going to click next. What students do I want to have an individual space? Maybe it's just 5 of them. But in most cases, I want all of my students to reflect or have that individual space where they can dialogue with me. Nobody else sees what's going on in there except for them and me. And of course, their individual space will pop up on their computers. No other student will be able to access their individual space. And that goes the same for all of the students. So I've selected all students, and I have created an individual space for everybody, right? This is where I get a chance to sort of set it up. What am I going to call it? What are we using as a description? Do I want to include any media in there? Do I want to put their reports from a standardized assessment if I'm utilizing that? Do I want to put those reports in there so that they can be able to access it? What do I want to use for the purpose of that? Now, I'm not going to save it, but if I did, it will obviously give that access to students once they were able to see it. Right now, it's hidden. Okay, if I click on review settings, I can also play with that visibility as well. Okay. So let me take you back here to.
We do have a quick question.
Go ahead.
If can students only see their own work? So knowing individual is just one-to-one, it's the teacher to the student, but in the group section, can students only see their own work?
So inside of the group space, the purpose of collaborating in that group space is that we do want all of the students within that group to see what's going on. And so I'm gonna go out of here for just a second so I can show you what that might look like. Because I did, just really quickly, I did create a group space for one of my classes, and it was around the novel that we were reading. And so I front loaded certain information, maybe it be vocabulary, maybe it was questions that I wanted for them to kind of think about and even discuss, right, within their space. So whatever group members were in that space, only that group can see it. So the discussions in one group space were not the same discussions in another group space. But we do, for the purpose behind the space, right, we do want all students to be able to interact in there.
And we have a clarification. I didn't know they were talking about, can parents see other students' work?
Okay, no. And so your parent, whatever parent you ask or add, will only be connected to the student that you add them at. And I'm going to get to that when we get to this people tab. So just bear with me for a second, and I'll show you exactly what that looks like in terms of how we add parents. How do we do that, right? But once we get them in there, they can only see things that are connected to their student. Okay, so I'm not going to stay in here very long, but here is the group space, and obviously it kind of looks like the class feed, if you will, but it's specific to that group. Okay, all right. So we're back in our CLIMBE class, CLIMBE Club, virtual interactions. We have talked about feed. We have looked at the activity section. We have identified there are 3 different types of spaces: the class, the group, and the individual. All right, messaging features, or the messaging window gives you the opportunity to create direct messages in 3 scenarios. Do you want to send a message to students and their families? So that's going to be direct to students and whoever you have attached to that student as far as their parent is concerned. Do you want to send a message just to family? Maybe I need parents to know that this is going to be happening. They need to come prepared with these materials. And then students, obviously, this is what I use most often because sometimes there's things that I want to communicate to them that they need to know, right? And so that's a good way for them to be notified. Notice we have a toggle up here. Do I want the student to respond to my response or to my message? No or yes. Okay. Also notice too, and you're going to see this, which is another thing that I love, because the whole multimodal experience is not just within an activity, it's not just on a post, but it could even be a response to the post where you can add those multimedia components. If I wanted to add audio as a way for them to respond or as a way for me to send a message, I can click on that microphone and I can talk about whatever it is I am saying, and it's recording. And so I can give them that multimedia, even in terms of audio, audio message versus a text message. Same thing with images or photos. If it's already saved, then it's a photo. I'm sorry, if it's already saved, I'm going to click on photos, right, and upload it, or I could take that photo live. Now I'm using the camera right now for Zoom, so obviously that's why the photo is not, or camera's not showing my face. And then of course the video component's in there as well. This is our link area. So if you had a good YouTube video that you wanted to watch for flipped learning, all right, come ready tomorrow to discuss the video that I want you to watch at home tonight. That could easily go under direct message and send to all students and families, or families. Maybe you want their families to discuss it with them. Okay, and then the last one is going to be your documents. And as you can see here, you have storage, which is on your local computer disk, right? And then you have Google Drive and OneDrive, which is your, obviously, Google and Microsoft. Okay, beautiful. So that's messaging. Messaging is very powerful because whatever I can accomplish in these 3 spaces, I might be able to do here. Last but not least, we have the people section. Now you'll notice that obviously we have 28 students located or listed here, which these are all teachers, by the way. We have a family tab, and I'm just going to use Amanda as an example because she's first. If I wanted to enter an email for Amanda's family, I could enter that email here. It's going to connect Amanda to, or connect this family to Amanda, send invitation, and then everything that we make visible to families in spaces is going to be connected to the student that the email is attached to. Okay. Now, if I make a mistake, if I put the wrong email in the wrong place or something like that, right? Maybe that's an opportunity for the wrong family to be connected to the wrong student, or vice versa. Or, but otherwise, each family will only have access to their particular students. Resources here as well, if you need those, are always helpful tools for how this looks in terms of spaces. So if there's something that comes up later that maybe I didn't say, or you had a question about, you might find answers in some of these, but I also invite you to ask those questions later too. Another aspect of the people is that I get a chance to add another teacher. And I know I teach ELA, and I have, for one of my classes, I have someone that pushes into my class. And that particular student needs to see what's going on with at least specific students in the classroom. And so if we invite that teacher, we're simply going to put their email address in here and add them. And what does that do for them? That allows them to see exactly what I see, because they are a teacher just as I am. So they may not necessarily be posting as much as me. They may just be monitoring, but they have basically the same access as I would as the teacher. All right, so that's kind of the overview of our 5 windows or tabs at the top. Let me pause again to see if anything's lingering out there.
No questions right now.
Excellent. All right, we have drafts, by the way. Why is this important? Because sometimes I'm typing something and I don't necessarily want to post it, or maybe I'm not finished with it, or maybe it's going to take a while for me to get the whole thing typed. This is going to also be the case for our students. Beauty of Spaces is it auto saves your drafts every few seconds. It will auto save. So you're not losing your information that you've typed. If for some reason you have to go away from the computer, it's going to auto save your work for you, which I know my students have thoroughly enjoyed, because there are times where we're doing so many different things that they forget to submit it. And so they have to go back to that draft and then finish it, turn it in, or post it, if you will. All right, let me direct your attention to, and again, hopefully everybody has gotten in. Kathy, I can certainly talk to you afterwards as well to get you in here if need be, if we didn't get you in yet. But there is a post here, and I called it Responding to a Post. And the question is, so far in today's webinar, I'm so glad this happened. All right, now if you notice, I have made a mistake here. There is a word missing, a, right? And I don't like that. So I can edit this post. And I do want to edit it because I need to make sure that I am being clear. So I can even say, what is one big idea you have heard, realized, or thought about? Okay, then I'm going to click save. And that's going to take us back to our main screen. You'll also see that I have edited it. So to me, that's kind of like, oh, it's edited. So maybe there was something added to it that I didn't see when I originally looked at it. I would like for everybody to respond. If you are in the classroom right now, I want you to try to respond to this post. And again, I'm going to point out some features here. You have your emojis. All right, if you really love this question and you want to let me know that you love it, you could hit the heart, you could check it off, like, okay, I see it, thumbs up, okay, I'm going to do it, clap, wow, that was amazing, and so on. The only one that maybe is not as positive is the pensive one at the end. This one's kind of your surprise. Okay, a tag. Why is this important? Well, if I saw that I wanted to tag something, a standard that I didn't put in there, or if I wanted to show or sort of identify how this is representing learning, I could use that. I already showed you what that was. And we'll talk about copy post, because maybe I want to copy this to a space. Maybe it's right now it's in the class space. But maybe I want to copy that post to the to a different location. And so if I did that, then I want to click on next, and notice what happens. We were in the class space right here, but maybe I wanted to copy it to the individual space. I click next. Again, I choose which students I want, and then post. So that's a beautiful thing too, right? I don't have to retype it. I can just copy it there if I wanted it to be hidden, or if I wanted it to be, okay, I just want to see individual student responses, and I don't want let's say, maybe there's some things that they're going to say, or maybe there's something that you want to not be in the class space, but you want it specifically in the individual space, or you want to kind of collect their individual responses in their individual space. So when you have that conversation with mom or dad, when you are thinking about, well, how can I bring this information up if I'm in a teacher conversation with other teachers, and I want to see this individual student's kind of dialogue. And so that's a beautiful thing. Oh, I see some people posting, yay, it's working, it's working. Okay, so I see Kathy's response, the ability of students to choose various ways to demonstrate understanding and learning. That's extremely powerful, and I'm going to give that a heart, because I believe that agency and autonomy and even accountability, those three words, AAA, agency, autonomy, and accountability is very important. Kathy says, my main big idea is my big accomplishment so far is I got in finally after 3 phones, 2 accounts, and 2 computers. Whoa, talk about perseverance and the ability for you to not give up, right? If at first you don't succeed, don't stop, right? And so I think Spaces even lends itself to that, making sure that we encourage our students, troubleshoot, let's try to figure out what's going on. By the way, if you're still looking at my screen, notice that there's 2 people who commented above Kathy. I was clicking real fast, but if I can't see them right now because they're sort of earlier on in the feed, but if I click on view all comments, it takes me to this screen. Now, why is this gray area over here? What in the world is going on? So if I had put in an image, then the image associated with whatever my post was would have been over here. And it creates this nice little interface that I just love looking at, right? But over here, I get a chance to see the question, and I can see all the responses as I scroll down. Janine says, this is a great medium for collaboration. Absolutely, absolutely, right? And so do we want our students collaborating? Absolutely, because learning is a social event. Collaboration is a way to really get the best of all worlds, I think, right? Because everybody has something to offer. Everybody has something to share. Maybe their viewpoint is different than mine. Samantha says, creation is the highest form of learning. Spaces is a place to showcase this. You better believe it. Absolutely. And I'm so glad you agree that creation is the highest form of learning. And so this is a great way to, again, look at all of the comments. I could even go in and reply to someone. And I'm going to challenge all of you, if you don't mind, find somebody else's post that has responded to this question and say something in response to them. Or maybe you want to ask a question. What do you mean by this? Or maybe you want to show that you agree. And maybe the emoji doesn't really represent it enough. Maybe there's something you want to add on, right? I teach my students yes and. All right, so what is yes and? Well, it's identifying and giving value to that specific student's comment, but it's also adding to it. So the conversation continues. The conversation is sort of augmented. And so it's not just one and done, right? Spaces offers the opportunity, almost like a Facebook page, to not have one and dones, right? Because it's more than just one and done. So creation is the highest form of learning. Spaces is a platform to show this. Absolutely. If you notice, I am typing a response to Samantha, and I'm going to ask a question. What is something you might have your students showcase on this platform? Okay, so there's my question. I'm going to post it by clicking on that button right there. Okay, and notice it's going to show my name. It's going to date and timestamp it, and it's going to also trigger a notification because obviously I replied to Samantha. You may or may not see that in your top right-hand corner at this moment, but I have replied. Okay, so if you will, take a moment to reply to someone's comment. If you haven't had a chance to post yet, I encourage you to do that as well. And I will, we're going to hopefully maintain this space as a continued medium for conversation as we go on, because maybe there's a question that comes up after our webinar today that sort of comes to mind. You're welcome to utilize this space continually as a medium for even asking questions, or even thinking about how can I do this using spaces, or even sharing the ideas that you have for how you want to use spaces in the coming year with your students. So I'm not sure, hopefully Samantha, you saw my comment posted there. I don't know if you saw the notification or anything, but feel free to respond to that question if you desire. Perseverance. So thank you, Kathy, for responding to, oh my gosh, Kathy responding to Kathy's response. That's funny. But that's awesome, right? And so what does this do for students? It's empathy. It's affirmation. It's making sure that everybody knows that their comments matter. Now, this is also a teaching tool, right? Because maybe as much as I want to highlight and maybe share and sort of focus on everybody's responses, think about this, right? If I go through it and I like everything, the question in my head is, if I'm thinking about my students, if I go in and like everything, am I really reading it? Or is it possible that I'm reading it and I do really like everything? So it's almost like a teachable moment of, well, how do I teach students how to interact in a space like this, but also reinforcing the importance of reading the content instead of just going through haphazardly, not giving credence to the ideas that have been shared by others. Okay, Samantha says, I think we will showcase our readers' theater performance so that all our families will have a chance to view their child's learning. OMG, I'm gonna clap for that, because I love drama, I love readers' theater, I love getting parents and families involved. You can never lose when you are able to involve parents, because now you have them as cheerleaders, as supporters, as reinforcers now, because you've connected them and given them this window into the classroom. And I'm not sure how you all feel about it, but a lot of times our families want to be able to help and reinforce, but they don't always know how. What's the best way to go about doing that? And so if we can connect them to content like this that we're sharing on a daily basis, on a consistent basis, how much more are they going to actually want to be involved and follow or track what's being learned in the classroom by their students? Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right, let me pause for just a second. I know not everybody may have had a chance to respond in here, but do we have any questions lying out there at this moment about anything we've discussed?
Not at this time.
Fantastic, fantastic. Just really quickly, if you decided that you did not want to name the class the same thing, I don't like this name. Okay, you can edit all of that, as well as the grade levels that might be involved. Sample student kind of gives you the opportunity to see what it looks like as a sort of looking in a generic space, if you will. I like toggling that on, because if I'm showing if I want to show what students a student view is without actually showing a specific student, then that gives you the opportunity to do that. You get to toggle on your reactions. If you don't want students actually using those emojis, you can toggle that feature off. If you don't want your curriculum tags to be visible, this is your visibility tab, but this one actually says, do you want to actually add them at all? Right? And I see value in that, because to me, if my students know why they are learning what they're learning, it carries more weight. It's more relevant to them. And so I might even go through and say, oh, this is, here is what we're hoping to get from this, right? I know in certain areas, we actually identify our learning targets and that sort of thing. And so that's a way to identify those learning targets for them. Okay, edit your avatar. And so you kind of get the idea there. Okay. I have not archived any of my classes from last year yet, but if at some point you decide that you want to archive, it doesn't delete them, it archives them so that you can kind of clear them out of your space for like the new year. There's that feature for you as well. All right, any new comments? Any new comments? Let's see, let's check one more time. All right, nothing new there, but thank you for responding in there. And again, continue to do so as this space is made available.
I do have a quick question. Can you switch from your own class to the Spaces class during the webinar series?
This is an interesting question. And this is something that I definitely want to be able to discuss. And what I haven't done was I haven't used the same email, right? So for my teacher account, I have a different email attached to it. And for my, let's say, student account, I have another one. So I'm looking at two different interfaces. However, if I use the same email address for my student account versus my teacher account, then I actually can connect myself to different spaces based on my email. And so that's something that we'll want to dialogue a little bit more about in terms of how we do that. And so whoever asked that question, we can certainly go down that road to sort of walk out how that looks. Okay, all right. So I'm going to head back to the presentation as very quickly we are, time is moving. But before we do that, any other questions that are lying out there specific to the platform before I take it off the screen?
Not at this time.
Okay, all right, excellent. All right, so I'm gonna stop share there. We're gonna go back to Keynote. All right, so again, while I'm trying to get this back visible for you, there really are just so many ways to app smash, but I also want to make sure that you all are aware that a lot of the functionality, if you're thinking about things that students can do using different platforms, they can also do a lot of that within Spaces. They can create your video, create your audio, build your embedded text within Spaces. All of those things can happen there, but they can also happen outside and you import them in. All right, and I love even that because it gives them the opportunity to choose. All right, and choice is so great when it comes to learning. As we sort of wind down here, folks, I'm thinking about climbing with Spaces. How do we take it a step further? How do we get students in there and actively involved? We talked about the quote of the day. And so how could we design a post around this quote? You are the only you that will ever be. Your experiences, your story, your diversity. Posting this as a visual as well as in typing in the text and giving students an opportunity to have a learning moment. Maybe you're going to challenge them to bring in a video that represents their answer to this question. Maybe you're going to challenge them to maybe do multiple things. Maybe you want them to produce an image. Maybe you want them to audibly discuss it. Maybe you want them to have some sort of video attached. Maybe you want them to have a link associated with it. You could have all these different components of the activity there where they have to go in and tag it all or bring it all into this one response in order for them to have a comprehensive experience. How can we use Spaces to model and facilitate a respectful disagreement? Again, very, very powerful, thinking about the quote, they're not going to always agree. And I think it's important that we allow them to disagree because again, it reinforces our opportunity then to teach them how to do it respectfully. There is room for digital citizenship within spaces, and the implications of digital citizenship are vast. This is just, again, the visual that I posted in one of your activities on there. And so the question I had asked, or I would like to ask here is, why might students have generated that visual? All right, so again, here's your visual. What will be the impetus behind it? Why was this visual even expected? And maybe it's not this visual, but some visual that represents diversity in history and society. That's easily a social studies task, easily a history task, easily something that you're connecting to a biography or an autobiography or a nonfiction text in your ELA class. What was the focus behind it? What structures or deep questions would you have presented to students that would have generated an image like that to be posted in spaces? Example, how was diversity represented in society today? And how is it important to the history of our country? All right, and then creating an example visual to show, and then as a model for them, and then having them be able to produce their own. Okay, again, that's just in there as another way to look at that. And we talked about the different types of questions that you can structure for them. But I believe that even asking those questions in spaces is empowering, because then if you ask the right question, you might get a lot of unexpected answers that are really, really good, or a lot of unexpected products that are diverse or varied. And that's the beauty of it, is not all students are going to respond in the same manner. Okay, and we're already in. Finally, just kind of thinking about, well, we have to be consistent, right? At least as I use spaces, I understand that, right? If I use it one day and I don't necessarily use it again until 3 weeks from then do I really consider it to be a learning hub? Do I really consider it to be a valid tool for consistent use in the classroom, for students to learn from, collaborate in, connect with families, if I'm not going to consistently utilize it? So I believe in being consistent. Do I see a question in the chat, Dr. Des?
No, you're good.
All right. All right, what then are the benefits of being tech tool consistent? Well, I believe that the benefits are students understand that this tool has value. It has relevance. It's an opportunity for learning, collaboration, and the whole social experience, right? Social skills are so important. And so we can put students in that position to be social, but in a way that is proactive and positive and respectful and active and engaging. We set them up for success. All right, and so just something for you to think about again as we come to a close here. How can we incorporate students being alert, engaged, inclusive, informed, and balanced when it comes to digital citizenship? And I believe that all of these can be built in, but for sure, we talk about the engagement piece, because if we structure it properly, students actively engaged in a space like this come away with so much more than we ever would have thought. Again, if you want, I don't know if you want to take a screenshot of that has all of the 6 app smashes on there that I sort of hypothesized. Screenshot that if you want to. Think about even deviations from that. Obviously, these are not absolute. Your Flipgrid, I would have gotten to that, but we're running out of time there. But even in Flipgrid, you're creating videos in Flipgrid. Those videos can be downloaded. They could also be linked, right? There's a link associated with every Flipgrid post. Those links can then be posted inside of spaces as well in your link tab. So feel free to screenshot that, utilize those, or alter them in whatever way suits the purposes for your class. But just some examples to sort of get you thinking, to stimulate ideas, and hopefully you're walking away from this webinar today with something useful, something that you can think about as we approach our new school year. If you will, this is our very last slide. I do want you to keep the conversations going, and so I will continue to interact on the spaces area, or CLIMBE class, or CLIMBE club on spaces. So definitely do that. If you will, there's a QR code on the screen. This is not the same as the one before, but this is just to sort of talk to spaces, right? Give spaces some maybe it's something that you saw today that you really would like to see, that's not necessarily there right now, or maybe it's something that you really, really like and you want to see more of it. If you're willing, right, please scan that QR code and give them, the Spaces team, some feedback on their platform and how it might be set up to be even more helpful for us as teachers in the classroom. All right, and so I'll sit right there on this slide. I want to say thank you so much for being here. Hopefully, as I said, you've taken away something, even if it's just one thing, you've taken away something that is instrumental or helpful, or gets those juices flowing when it comes to thought. And so you might even have them record a song and upload that, right? So many different things going on there. Dr. Des, I'm going to pass it back to you if there's any additional questions, and then I will stop share too once everybody gets that QR code scanned, if they're going to do that, and we'll maybe do a prize or something. Who knows?
Did we want to do a prize today?
Oh, I don't know.
Let me know so we can set it up, because
we might have a couple of things we might be able to give away today.
Okay. So before we do that, do we have any questions? You can throw them in the chat, or you can hop on the mic. And while we're waiting for people to unmute themselves, or we're waiting for the questions to come in the chat, how would you like to give away your prizes? Are we doing the same system as last time?
Yes, let's do that. Let's do that. I think that worked really, really well. And so, as you all may or may not know, I have had the distinct honor of sharing, in terms of authoring books. And the very first book I wrote was Journey to the YNU, but I've also written a couple of plays, which is sort of the focus of our giveaways today. In fact, the lesson plan and the resources section goes along with the play. And we're going to hopefully give away a couple copies of that today, which it's already ready to use for your classrooms. It integrates some spaces in there, and it really can get your students talking and collaborating on their ideas, right? Because there are maybe some things I intentionally left out in order to stimulate that visualization. What is that? What's the character of that individual in the play, right? And so that lesson plan goes along with it. So you'll get a copy of that book. I will sign that book for you. I will send that book to you. And so we will want you to, if you don't mind, either direct or private message your contact information, mailing information to me on here at the end if you are a winner, or you can email it to me as well, and we will get that out to you as soon as possible. My email address is currently on the screen right here, dean@gainey.com. My website information is there. If you have not, again, followed on Twitter, please do. I will follow you back. We will share, we will share, we will share. And then even on Instagram. So definitely get connected, and anything you need, we'll try to make that happen for you as much as possible.
So while I'm not seeing any questions, I just wanted to thank you so much, Dean, for this session. I think it leads perfectly into the last two sessions of the Spaces Summer Webinar Series. So unfortunately, this is your last session with us, and then you are going to, we're going to switch it over to Melody for our last two sessions. So I just wanted to really heartfelt say thank you for these first two sessions.
I want to echo that and say thank you as well, Dr. Alexander, because you have given us this opportunity, and you've been very, very gracious these 2 days that I've been on as well. So I'm looking forward to the next 2 Spaces webinars. And so if you have a chance to jump on those, folks, definitely do so, because really and truly, you know, we want our kids to be the best. And this is a great tool to help them on that pathway.